Hi everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS. In this lecture, we will discuss the new phase of India's struggle towards the freedom. And this is the beginning of nationalism, which we will study today. And here we will understand how the Indian National Congress formed and how leaders came together. But before we start this, we need to understand what kind of reasons were there. Like, was there any ground prepared for it? And if the ground came, then how and when it came? Okay, so let's start the discussion. First of all, guys, let me know if I'm live, if I'm audible and visible to you. And if you have any doubts from the last class, you can comment down below. And if you are ready for the class, let me know. Okay, can we start? Yes, hello everyone. Hello Pranav. Good evening. Good evening, guys. So let's start the discussion. First of all, we need to understand the role of press and literature. As I have already discussed with you, that when you see something new new if coming in society, and if it is influencing people and the minds of the people in the society, then it must be coming from somewhere. Like if you read something on social media, if you follow any pages, or if you read any kind of memes, or if you see any status, then you get influenced by it. Sometimes even if you're not getting influenced, you at least think about it, right? You start discussing it, society starts discussing it, and in the way of this discussion, or the way people socialize and create an idea of a new beginning, then they understand that there needs to be a change, there needs to be a improvement in the society, and with that improvement we can lead a better life. Then people start realizing their civil liberties and rights and fundamental rights, duties, and so many other things. So here, that is something which came in India. As we have already covered the, revolt of 1857 and the socio-religious reform movements. Now we know that people got aware, right? They understood that what is right and wrong, and they also understood the colonization, the meaning of colonialism, the meaning of British rule, and what kind of British Raj it was. So, when people realized it, they started discussing it. And many philosophers and writers, editors, authors, they utilized this opportunity to create an awareness in the society by their contributions with the literature and press. So, that is something which you need to understand, that how the nationalism came in India, what kind of reasons were there, and what were the roles played by different dominions. So first role is by the press and literature. Okay, so this is something which is a time period which is about the second half of 19th century. So you can see that this is the time after 1850s, or if specifically I say after the revolt of 1857. Okay. Now, this is the second half of 19th century when we see that Indian owned English and vernacular newspapers started coming in India. English newspapers were also there because, see, English is an international language, and at that time also it was very popular among educated Indians. And internationally, if you want to circulate something, showcase something, English was best considered language. Even today in India, you see, we don't have a national language, right? We have Hindi, but it is an official language. English is also an official language. In the states, in all the different states, we have allowed, like center allowed, constitution allows each and every state to have their own, uh, you know, official language in their own state. So that is fine for them. So regionally, if you look at the diversity of India and so many linguistic diversities and people coming from different areas, background and culture, it was extremely problematic to impose just one language on them. So English was a safe thing to be started, and it could be read and understood by many of the Indian people. not completely by everyone, but it was popular. Second, vernacular newspapers. Vernacular means the Indian languages, local languages, regional languages. Those newspapers also came. In these newspapers, editors started criticizing the westernization, English influence, and the colonial rule. So they started exposing the British Raj. They started exposing Britishers, and they wanted to put forward the harsh reality in the society, like why people are suffering. And it is always said that if somebody is torturing you and if you're facing something which is bad, then you are the first person who needs to take this blame. Okay, why it is happening with you? Because you let it happen with you. And if you will not raise your voice, if you will not say something, if you will not ask, you'll not get. Gandhiji used to say this every time. If you won't ask, you won't get. So if you want to get your rights, you need to ask for it. You need to fight for it. And then people realized that what kind of English, administration or the official administration is going on in India. And in 1877, there were about 169 newspapers published, and all of them started giving reality. That's why media is known as the a very important pillar of democracy. Media plays a very important role with executive, judiciary, and legislatures. Media, these people coming from the media or journalism, this is also important to have a healthy democracy and political freedom in the country. The press, while criticizing the official policies, on the one hand urge the people to unite on the other. So this is not just to criticize the government, it was also to unite people, to make them understand that what is the need of our. Because people in India, see, we Indians, we are very emotional, right? And we are very sensitive people. We really are very sensitive about our culture, religion, and so many things. And if you see, Indians are very acceptable also. They accept things very nicely. They absorb so many new diversities and culture, and they get socialized, and they, get mixed with everything. That's why since the time of medieval era, we saw that when Islamic art came in India, Indo-Islamic art, became very popular during Delhi Sultanate. When Mughals came, then Mughal art got popular. And when we see that Britishers, when they came, they introduced their own art and style. So Indians got mixed with this one also, with the indigenous art, with the indigenous style. Things got mixed. So there are only few exceptions when it didn't get mixed with the Indian art or indigenous style. Otherwise, you will see that it was all around, everywhere in India. So now people understood that we need to be very observant that what exactly are we consuming. And if Britishers are doing something, then they should do good for India and Indians. So we should unite and we need to help each other. One more point is the progressive character of socio religious reform movements, because we already had so many social evils in India, like sati system, like so many other, you know, problems. Sometimes it was against females, sometimes it was against lower caste people, scheduled tribes, scheduled castes. So, yes, social evils used to be there, and they got not eliminated completely, but it got decreased. Social evils got decreased, backwardness got decreased. People had a open mindset now, and with that open mindset, they will think broadly. So that broad mindset was introduced, and people became very, very aware, right? Very, very aware, self aware. And this is something which is very, very important. If we talk about the pre Congress campaigns, before the Indian National Congress, we already had many associations, sabhas, and organization. The associations organized various campaigns in which they used to have workshops, activities, in which they used to engage people with, their to understand their daily rights and political rights, to create an awareness among the masses and to connect with them. Okay, so before Indian National Congress, the connection was made by these association. Why? For the imposition of import duty on cotton in 1875, import duty, it was needed to be imposed, that if you are importing something and if you are giving some finished good to Indians, you need to have some duty or tax on it. And Indians wanted the Indianization of government by including more Indians in the services from 1878 to 79. Against Lytton's Afghan adventure, where so many Indian soldiers died and a lot of money was destroyed, and people were against the Arms Act also in the 1878, because by this act Britishers never wanted Indians to have any kind of arms and ammunition with them. Like Indians used to have swords and so many other, small ammunitions, but Britishers never wanted it to be there in the society, so they introduced this Arms Act to prohibit it. They were against the Vernacular Press Act 1878. According to this act, see, if there is something written in English, Britishers could read and understand it. But if it is written in Marathi or in any other regional language, it became difficult for them. However, a copy was always submitted in advance. But here they was just wanted to impose a restriction that in case you publish anything objectionable in the vernacular press or by the vernacular newspaper, then the press material, the property would be seized, things would be confiscated by the government. So nothing objectionable should be published. For the right to join volunteer corps, and people wanted to join it, people wanted to perform their own duties, and against the plantation labor and against the Inland Immigration Act, by which many people who got migrated from India were treated badly. So now they wanted to have a better treatment, and so many plantations, workers came in India to work here, and many people, many Indians, they worked as a labor in different parts of Asia and Europe. So now they wanted more equality. People wanted to support the Ilbert Bill, because in the Ilbert Bill, it was said that Indian judges and European judges would have equal powers. Like if there is a trial running on any European person, English, or a British person, then even an Indian judge can have a trial and can punish that person if the person is a criminal, or if he or she committed any crime or mistake. So here, when this bill was introduced, the problem was that Europeans, as they always used to do racial discrimination, they started protesting against the Ilbert Bill. That how could you give same powers to Indians and Europeans? Even if they are judges, they must have no equal rights. So that's why, they started this, a movement against this Ilbert Bill. Europeans started this movement, and when Europeans started this movement against the government withdrew the Ilbert Bill, which created a lot of controversy, and that is known as the Ilbert Bill controversy, because Indians wanted equal rights for equal, powers for the Indian judges as it was given to the European judges, but Europeans never wanted it to be like that. So Ilbert Bill was withdrawn, and it created a Ilbert Bill controversy, and this controversy made it clear that Britishers really don't feel Indians as equal to them, and it created a racial problem or a racial hatred among the Indian hearts. Next is for an all India fund for political agitation, where people wanted to move against the government in case they want to protest, in case they want to raise the voice, they wanted to have some funds and power. They wanted to campaign in Britain also to vote for pro-Indian party, so that a government comes who is, or when members of that government are favorable for Indians, and they decide good policies for Indians and colonies also. against the reduction in the maximum age for appearing in the Indian civil services. So people wanted to, have more age limit, because the education system of India, even if today if government decides or sets a committee to reduce the age in the Indian civil services exam, as you are an UPSC aspirant, you know how the pain is. Many of these students, when they appear in this exam, sometimes they waste 1 or 2 year in the initial preparation. Sometimes many of them, for their own backup planning, and if they get engaged due to their financial circumstances in any kind of employment or job, once they complete their study, they reach in their late 20s, and then it's not easy for them to prepare for the exam and to focus with that particular age limit, and it creates a huge level of burden on them. So it's not easy to be, participating in the exam or attempting it at a very small age, at a very early age. So at that time, initially it was 19 years, and then it was 21 years, then it got increased later. So here you can understand how they used to, just exclude Indians so that Indians could never get a good job. The Indian Association took up this question and organized an all India agitation against it, popularly known as Indian Civil Service Agitation, where they never wanted the reduction in the age limit. Okay, clear? Yes. There is one question by Neha uh, about the explanation of Ilbert Bill. Yes, I'll explain it again, don't worry. Pranav, yes, you are right, Pranav, that Ilbert Bill controversy highlighted the racial discrimination in the judiciary. And yes, it is right. But let me just explain it to you. It was by Sir Countley Ilbert. So he was a law member of Lord Ripon. So when Lord Ripon was there in India, the basic thing which you need to understand is that, let's say there is an Indian judge, or assume that you are an Indian judge. Okay, if you are an Indian judge and there is one European judge, so they both have similar powers, right? Because they both are judge, they are from judiciary, they both have this independent powers. Now let's say you are running a trial on someone, and in case that person is English, okay, a white person or an European, then it was said, according to the Ilbert Bill, that even an Indian judge can have a trial and run a case on this matter, and can punish this person if person committed any crime, if he or she is guilty. But if he or she is guilty, then even a European judge can punish and have a trial. This is fine, right? Ilbert Bill wanted this to happen. Ilbert Bill wanted to give equal powers to both Indian and European judges. Fine. But when this bill was introduced, many of the Europeans started protesting against it, because they never wanted to get punished or to have a trial run on them by an Indian judge, as they thought that Indians are backward and uncivilized. So they could never punish an Englishman. And that's why they challenged this bill. When they started protesting, government withdrew this bill. So when Ilbert Bill was cancelled, this equality was also cancelled. It means that Indian judges will have lesser rights than the European judges. In case there is an English trial going on, and on an English or European person, even if the person is guilty, the European judge can only punish or can run a trial. So that is something which shows a racial discriminatory behavior, and that's why the controversy got started, that Indians wanted this bill to be introduced and to be passed, but Europeans rejected it and they never got it passed. That's why the controversy was there. This is known as Ilbert Bill controversy. Fine? I hope, Neha, your doubt is clear. Okay, great. And those of you who joined it, please like the video and share it with your friends. Okay, you need to share it. And if you're reading NCRT or if you have Spectrum with you, you'll see that in the end of this particular chapter, which is about the rise of nationalism in India, you'll get to see a summary. This particular page is very, very important for your prelims. So try to remember this page. Okay, this is important for prelims. Okay, let me just give you a good idea about all the points and each and every line. So first is the factor in growth of modern nationalism. Let's say they ask you in mains that you need to jot down the factors. So there you need to understand that people understood the contradictions between the Indian and colonial interests. They understood that Indians and colonial people or British officers, they are different, and somehow they have imposed a lot of restrictions and prohibitions on Indians. So when people understood their political, administrative and economic rights, they started unifying. Okay, when they unified, they started protesting and raised movements in the country. And they also understood the western thoughts like education, western literature, western development. So they understood that technically India needs to be developed more, so Indians should be empowered and educated in a good way. So it got introduced in their minds by the influence of so many political campaigns and organizations going on in India. So that's why the role of press and literature is important. People started taking examples from the past, like in the ancient India, we had a golden age. Used to good very good in the Ayurveda, yoga, and we had our own science, mathematics. So we used to rule the world. We had a good knowledge, understanding. So, when historical researches started in India, people realized that we are not inferior. Okay, we can also rule, we can have our own government, we can have our own country and resources utilized for us. So, we can control the system. So, we don't need Britishers to control us, and we want Britishers to go out. And there was a rise of middle class intelligentsia also, who supported the idea of modernization in India, and they wanted to give more rights and powers to Indians. Okay, and there was impact of contemporary movements worldwide because we got inspired by French Revolution, by later we will be getting inspiration from the Russian Revolution also. We got very much inspired by the American Revolution, why America wanted independence from Britain, how other colonies were getting treatment by the Britishers, like in Canada, in Australia. So we started a worldwide comparison, and with this comparison we realized that we are not treated well. Indians are not getting right treatment, and their civil rights and liberties are getting suppressed. So when they understood it, they started a protest, and so many reactionary policies were introduced by the government, in which government wanted to take away the powers and rights from the Indians, and it was not good for the on an humanitarian ground also. This is not right. Racial arrogance of the rulers was also highlighted, and that's why people now got this growth of modern nationalism in India. So if we talk about political associations, so before Indian National Congress we had many political associations. If I ask you what kind of works like these political associations did, like I told you few areas and the concepts or the points where they used to work, but if you want to give me few points and the role or the working functions of these political associations, do you know? Or if even if you don't know, try to understand and imagine the situation where before the Indian National Congress the awareness was getting created in India. So how could this awareness come? Okay, how this awareness and development could be there in India by doing what? Like we had in 1836 Bang Bhasha Prakasika Sabha, Zamindari Association, or the Landholder Society, where in the Bengali area, these people, this political association, wanted peasants to be aware, wanted masses to be aware. They wanted people to understand their taxation rights. In 1843, we had Bengal British Indian Society. In 1851, we had British Indian Association. In 1866, East India Association. In 1870, very famous Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. In 1875, we had Indian League. In 1876, Indian Association of Calcutta or Indian National Association came. In 1885, Bombay Presidency Association. In 1884, we had Madras Mahajan Sabha. So all these sabhas, what they used to do, they used to publish magazines. Sometimes they used to publish articles in the newspapers. They used to sit with the common people and they used to give them stories from the ancient past, and they used to make them realize that, see, something bad is happening with you. You are an Indian and you are ruled by an European. So you need to understand that things are not fine with you, why you are not getting employment, why you are facing this poverty, why do you don't have good medical services in India, because there is some problem in the governance and you need to ask for it. So to ask for it, we need to join together, and if we all will unite, then we can lead a protest, and their leaders will demand something from the government to help you have a better fulfilled life. And to get your basic needs and a better life, you need to come with us. And then we all can have a movement together. So this kind of awareness was getting created. To create it, they used to write a lot. They used to have sometimes dramas and street plays. They used to, lure people by giving them folk songs, and by playing things with them, by doing a lot of activities in which meetings were organized, and pamphlets were distributed among people. So people, when they used to read those pamphlets, when they used to hear these things on radio, sometimes when they used to listen it from the leaders, from a word of mouth is very very important. So when people understood this by so many people, by so many ideas, then they thought that yes, something is not right with me, and if I want to improve my life, if I want my country to grow, then I should be doing something, and I need to join these people coming from different associations. So locally, wherever, whatever kind of association was, people started uniting and joining it. So then people got a kind of good awareness, but still it was not enough to get the freedom. It will be very much consolidated by the Indian National Congress in 1885. So we will see the rise of Indian National Congress and the difference between moderates and extremists. Fine, got the point? So we need to understand the foundation first, like why Indian National Congress was formed. There is a safety valve theory that Indian National Congress was created by the Britishers. Even A.O. Hume, who started it, was a British civil servant, retired British civil servant, but he used to think according to a British perspective. So somehow, Britishers, Europeans, English, the way they used to rule, here they wanted to have power with them. Now, if you look at the rule, the colonial rule, the structure of the governance, it was not right. It was exploiting the Indians. So, if you look at this exploitative nature, you will realize that these Britishers always wanted to hold the powers. Okay, they held the powers. And in each and every office, in each and every department, they only used to control everything. Now, these Britishers never wanted to lose it. They never wanted same revolt of 1857 or any revolt of the same nature again in the India. They never wanted to face any difficulty directly, and they knew that somehow people are getting aware in India, so they will start fighting and asking for their rights. So to have a safety, they thought to make a platform on the name of Indian National Congress. So Indian National Congress will be like a wall. It will be like a safety wall. It will be like a cover who will protect Europeans, European offices, British offices, to help, you know, us against the protests by the Indians, and to, prepare in advance in case people get angry, in case they do something wrong against the Britishers. They will always have something in backup in their mind. So to get prepared in a well way to avoid revolts in the future, Britishers wanted Indian National Congress to be formed, and this is a safety valve theory. So this theory, if it is right or wrong, we can't really comment on it, but just try to understand that Indian National Congress is like a link. Okay? It is like a link connecting Indian people and masses to the British government. Okay. Now, Indian people like peasants, zamindars, general civilians, they were suffering. Britishers, officers, they were ruling. Okay. These people used to give tax to the government. Tax was given, right? So if you pay tax to the government, you should have some rights, right? Government needs to perform few duties. So if people are paying taxes, they can ask government to have something. Now, if these people are suffering, they could have few demands and grievances. These demands and grievances, they can only bring by, asking for it. So if generally all the people, if they unite together and if they come sometimes as a crowd, it would be very confusing for the government to understand. To make government understand and realize the real problems of Indians, a platform was needed. A platform where all these demands could come discussed and a list would be prepared in a very organized way, and that formal list, the formal letter or the request, would be given to the rulers so that they realize and make a rule or a bill would be introduced to fulfill the demands of the people. So INC, Indian National Congress, will work like a link. Here, with this link, also, whenever Indians, if they get angry, if in case they have any plan of revolt in future, before taking any step, they will reach to INC. INC will know it, like what kind of mentality is going on in Indian masses. After understanding, they can suggest something to British government so that the government is prepared. Now government can do two things. It can lead a, you know, army or a commander in chief to have suppress this revolt, and just don't think about the Indians. Suppress them, beat them, imprison them, punish them, and shut their mouth. Okay, this is one way. Second way is they can improve their ruling, they can realize the real problems and make rules with a better governance. In both the ways, this British rule is going to be safe. It will continue without getting destroyed by the anger of Indians. So, this safety could be only given if INC is there. They understood that Indian National Congress can play a huge role, a big level of role in protecting the British government to survive. So, for their survival, for a better future, get more power, to exploit more, okay, to get more resources in India, they wanted to stay here. And to stay, they needed Indian National Congress, and that's something which is known as a safety valve theory. Now, the question is that if this safety valve was really given to the Britishers, was Indian National Congress really working for the Britishers, or they wanted to work for Indians and they really wanted Indian people to get their rights, to have some power and authority? What do you think? INC is in which side? Side of Indian people, or they were taking side of the Britishers? What do you think? Personally, tell me. Even if you have read something in the books, that's fine, but still you can tell me. There is one question by Abhishek. Yes, Abhishek, you asked something like, is it true that Hume was in touch with Tibetan Babas who were guiding him and controlling the area of Indians, and it was based on their forecast only that he established INC? See, these kind of stories are always there, but first of all, it's not important for the UPSC, but for understanding, understand that whenever someone does something, like if AO Hume, AO Hume decided to make INC, uh, a realization is always there. There is a thing known as intuition, right? You get some intuitions that people, after the revolt of 1857, they got a kind of practice, an idea, and we improve with practice. So somehow government understood that even if they had suppressed the revolt of 1857, there is no guarantee that people will not revolt again. This time they knew that if Indians will revolt, they will come with a better understanding and knowledge, because they realized and they had learned a lot from the mistakes from the revolt of 1857. So Britishers, see, first of all, technically they were advanced, educated with the modern sciences. Politically they were more aware. So they had a a better planning always there in their mind. So this is fine, but you need to know that INC, before being INC, before Indian National Congress was really there, it was already there in India. These leaders, they were working already in India with different associations and sabhas, but they were, they were not together, right? They were not consolidated. They got consolidated together in the INC platform. Okay, they came together after the INC was made. But before INC, they still had a connection. They still had associations. They still had ways to connect and discuss things. So that's why nobody could stop this formation of INC. But if I ask you that INC was inside of Indian people or British government, then you must understand that they were initially inside of the British government, but it was not to help Britishers or to be a safety for the Britishers. No, they never wanted to serve Britishers as a safety valve. Even if A.O. Hume created it with the mindset, you can understand that unwillingly INC was trying to have a good connection with British government, but they never wanted Indians to suffer. In reality, INC understood it that, see, if they are using us for the safety wall, we can also use them as a lightning conductor. We can also utilize this opportunity to end the suffering of the Indian people and to understand the real grievances of Indian masses. So you can see that it is a win-win situation where INC is also winning and British government is also winning. INC is winning as getting created and having all the leaders consolidated from different parts of India. Okay, now they all could work together. But British government also got a kind of safety from any revolt, same as the revolt of 1857 again in the future. So yes, they got some safety. Now, understand that INC always worked for Indians only, but for 20 years they were moderates. They thought that this British government is really good for India, but they don't know the real problems of Indians. But if we will make them aware of the real Indian demands and problems, they will surely understand it and will introduce nice rules in India which will lead to a better governance. So, to make them realize, we need to talk to them. So, initially, they had to follow three P's: prayer, petition, plead. By following it in a very moderate way, they wanted to make government aware. So, initially, they had this moderate approach. But after getting no results in the end, they decided to follow a new policy in which they became extremists and they realized the real face of the British Raj. After realizing the real face and getting the real problem and exploitative tendency of Britishers, they now understood that these people, Europeans, have no nature to start good governance in India. They could never lead to any development in India. They just wanted to exploit and make their profit. When this realization came in the Indian minds, and especially in the minds of INC leaders, they changed. Okay, they became extremists. And the best example is the partition of Bengal in 1905, when these leaders realized that we should not talk to government. This government is not an Indian government, it's a British government. And they cannot work for Indians, they can only work for Britishers, they can only think about Europeans, they don't care about Indians, they have no sensitivity in their hearts. This realization will come after 20 years, right? But before that realization, we need to understand the work of Indian National Congress as a moderate leader, as a phase in a moderate phase, in a moderate way. See, if you want to ask something or influence someone, you will not just start fighting, no. You will just ask and speak softly and nicely. When you'll see that the person is not understanding, then only you will use the extreme way. Okay, and you'll show the anger. No, that okay, I want it and it is not right that you're not giving it to me. Even after that, if you understand that the person is very rigid, then you will take the arms. Okay, then you will have a different policy. There is a कहावत कि अगर जब तक सीधी उंगली से घी निकलता है तब तक उंगली सीधी ही सही है, बट अगर सीधी से नहीं निकलेगी तो उंगली को टेढ़ी करना पड़ेगा, वही वाली बात है. तो इन द मॉडरेट फेज सीधी उंगली से हमने घी निकालने की वी ट्राइड इट इन अ वेरी स्ट्रेट एंड अ सिंपल वे, but when it never worked without getting any results, after 20 years we decided to make it tedhi ungli and turn the policy in a different direction, and the leaders became extremists. Clear? I hope this is fine to understand. Yes, Abhishek, I told you that this is right, fine. And see, if historians, when they write something, they know that what kind of historiography they are following. And one more point is there that a realization was there with the Britishers that Indians are getting united and they could lead a revolt in a better way again. So they were afraid of it and then they decided to form the INC. Okay. So, yes. run up, and yes, everyone understand that initially they were inside of Britishers. They thought that Britishers are nice people, good people, they are very knowledgeable and educated, they can really help Indians to grow and develop. But it was not true. Okay, now let's come to the foundation. The foundation of Indian National Congress was laid down by A.O. Hume. A.O. Hume, who was a retired English civil servant. He organized the first session of INC at Bombay. It was in December 1885, which was attended by 72 delegates and presided over by Umesh Chandra Banerjee. So here you understand a rule that there needs to be a meeting and a president needs to be presided. Okay, so president will preside the meeting. Now the problem was that this Indian National Congress, they used to meet only once in a year. Okay, annually they used to meet. Do you think that meeting once in a year is sufficient to make policy for such a diverse country like India? Like, if our parliament decides to meet only for once in a year, then do you think they will be making a good policy and they would be able to decide something? No. Because if you're just meeting for once, like just, one time in a year, then you will not have enough time and things to be discussed. How would you decide that what is right and wrong? So this is a big problem. So for 20 years, they, in their moderate phase, they used to meet only once. Second problem was that when they used to meet, they always decided a different place of meeting so that they could understand the diversity of country and they could be, somehow highlighting different regional areas and would be understanding the problems from different backgrounds. So that's why every time the place was different. Now, this is also right, but everything has pros and cons. With this problem, what happens is that you could not have a same single office where one department is working on daily basis and having official data updated where everyone can reach to you whenever you want or wherever you are. So when there is no stable office, when there is no stable headquarter, then it's always confusing for the Indians to meet their leaders in real time basis, right? So that problem was there. Dadabhai Nauroji, Badruddin Tayebji, Firoz Shah Mehta, these leaders and so many other, they all came, and these 72 delegates attended it, and in this meeting they decided that they are making Indian National Congress. Here you can see these leaders. So first woman president of INC was Annie Besant, but she was not Indian. First Muslim president was INC was Badruddin Tayebji, and the first Indian women president, Indian woman, okay, Indian woman, she was Sarojini Naidu. Second woman overall after Annie Besant to do so. Okay, so just remember this: Annie Besant, Badruddin Tayebji, and Indian Sarojini Naidu. Here you can see the picture of 72 delegates who attended the meeting. Okay, so now you need to remember this date every time, 1885. Okay, remember this. Fine, 1885. Now understand the journey from 1885 to 1905. 20 years, moderate phase, in which INC will follow 3 P's. 3 P's means prayer, petition, deed. Means that in case they wanted anything from the government, they used to pursue the government by praying for it. Like, we pray, we request you to give us this. Please make a law like this to help Indians. Indians want this. Britishers should understand. And they used to wish, okay, and pray. And to, have it in a formal understanding, they used to file the petition and submit it in front of the government that this is the petition, and here you can read the demands. On the basis of those petitions, government used to make the law. Sometimes government used to partially accept it, so that Indian National Congress is not, you know, will not get angry, and they will also stay with the government. And sometimes these leaders used to plead, like, please, we need it, please give it, please go for it. And they used to ask like this. So you see, this is a very moderate approach. Have you ever realized that sometimes when you be very humble with people, they take you very lightly, they don't respect you. When you know, talk in in an arrogance, and when you an attitude, then only people take you, you know, nicely and strongly, and they listen to you, agree with you, and respect you more. So it happens every time, but this is not right. Okay, sometimes when someone is there in front of you, and if he or she is speaking in a humble way, then you must not take that person lightly. You should talk very nicely and softly and be kind to everyone. But Britishers, they were not kind, and they used to take these moderate leaders and these ways in a very light way. So what they used to do it, they partially accepted few demands, partially, not completely. Why? Because they had this strategy. The strategy was that if Congress will ask for the cake, government will give them chocolate. If Congress will ask for the chocolate, government will give them toffee or a lollipop. That, okay, you demanded this, we can't give you this, but we can give you this. If you will demand this, then you will get this. So every time the demands were only partially accepted as per the convenience of the government. Government never accepted the full demands of INC in a real time way. They used to delay the matter, they used to, you know, delay the things and waste the time of people of India and Indian National Congress. Leaders, when they realize that they really don't get what they want and what they demand, they understood that they need to follow a different approach. With the different approach, Bal Pal. Do you know the name of these leaders? Who are Bal Pal? Who will tell me? Write it in the comment section if you know the names. Bal Pal. Yes. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Aurobindo Ghosh. Yes. All these leaders, they came together, and you know, these extremist leaders, they asked for Swadeshi. स्वदेशी मेरा जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार है, स्वराज मेरा जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार है, और मैं इसे लेकर के रहूंगा. Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. So the idea of Swaraj will come after 1905. Now you need to understand this question, that what is Swaraj? What is Swaraj, self rule, Swadeshi, and how it is different from complete independence or Swatantrata, independence, which you see today in India. How it is different from Swaraj. Swaraj में और स्वतंत्रता में क्या difference है? What is the difference between Swaraj and Swatantrata? Self-rule and independence. There is a difference between these two things. That difference you need to understand. Here, initially, there is no discussion on self-rule. They wanted British rule to be continued in India, but with the British rule, they wanted Britishers to work for Indians in a better way. But now they want Swaraj means self rule for Indians. Okay? Now, what happened in 1905 due to which this policy got diverted in a different direction. What happened in 1905, that moderate phase got converted into an extremist phase. Why many leaders became extremists? Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Aurobindo Ghosh, Bipin Chandra Pal, these leaders, they became very extreme. And then after this, you will get to see a revolutionary phase. The revolutionary leaders came. Two phases of revolutionary movements were there. Initially, few sabhas and organizations worked. Later, you will see that Bhagat Singh and so many new leaders will come. So, why this development and why in 1905? Was there anything new? Yes, Pranav, you are right. That's fine. Okay. So, the problem was that in 1905 we saw the partition of Bengal by Viceroy Curzon. Curzon. Viceroy Curzon used to follow reactionary policies. He divided Bengal into two parts, east and west. Why? Because Bengal became an epicenter of nationalism. And to stop this feeling of nationalism, they divided Bengal on the name of administrative convenience. Britishers said that we are dividing it because we want good administration. It's a very big province, so as a biggest province of India, it's not easy to lead the Bengal in a good way. So government decided to partition it into two parts so that better administration could be followed. But this was not the real reason. Real reason was that they wanted to follow the divide and rule, and to divide Hindus and Muslims, the partition happened so that Hindu population and Muslim population can get different states. And they wanted to lure Muslims, where Muslims would be given a new capital, Dhaka. Okay, so the part which you see as Bangladesh today was the part of East Bengal, which is not in India now. But at that time, East Bengal, the Bangladesh area, was also the part of Bengal. So it was known as the East Bengal. So West Bengal, Hindu majority, East Bengal, Muslim majority. Clear? And one more point is that there is a difference between Swaraj and Swatantrata. Self rule means when Indians can have more opportunities in the political posts and administrative posts, where Indians are also getting included and they can also make policies for their own country. So initially, Indians wanted to work with Britishers and they just wanted to learn things so that a better transfer of power happens. It was a gradual process, but there then they realized that we should not just have Indians included in the governance, but only Indians should rule. So later they started asking for self rule in a complete way. But here in the self rule, there is no sovereignty of the Indian government or the Indians, because always Britishers had the suzerainty and upper hand. But when we asked for the complete independence, full independence, it started with 1929. But when we will demand full independence, then we wanted sovereign powers, sovereign rights, samprabhuta, means no dominance of Britishers at all. So here, with the self rule, the British dominance will always remain. Now, the question is, if the British dominance will remain, then why these extreme leaders, extremists, started asking for self rule? Why not they started demanding complete independence directly? Why could we not get complete independence directly? But we started the discussion from Swaraj, self rule, Home Rule League, and then we declared Purna Swatantrata, Purna Swaraj, complete independence. So, why this journey took us so long? Why couldn't we start directly discussing and fighting for complete independence in India? Why? Why not complete independence? Why Swaraj with British dominance? Why self rule with the British dominance? What do you think? Can you give me the answer? If you have read something in geography, if you see the journey of a river, when river comes from the mountain area, it flows very fastly, and then it becomes very moderately smooth and swift in the plain area where it makes meander, and before entering into sea it makes delta. It is very very slow and steady in the nature in the old phase, right? So, uh, here you can understand that everything happens in a gradual way. It's a gradual process of getting something. If you want something, you can't just directly start fighting for it. You need to start very, softly in a very humble way. Then you can try few extreme methods and then revolutionary methods. Even after revolutionary methods, if you don't get, then you will lead the way of a complete independence where everything would be reasonable, everything is fair in the war, and then that will start. So this attitude is very very important to have a gradual process. So Indian leaders wanted to follow it in a good way, in a smooth way, and they were moving slowly and steadily. So it's a step by step process. So first step is modern nationalism, moderate phase. In the second step, extremist phase. In the third step, revolutionary phase. In the fourth step, Gandhian phase. In the fifth step, complete independence phase, Purna Swaraj. And then independence will come with partition. So step by step approach was there, which was getting followed. Okay, which was getting followed and which was introduced with the Indian leaders, and that's why they were going in a very slow and steady way. But don't you think that 20 years of time period is a very very big time period, isn't it? You guys are not giving me answers. You need to give me a few answers in the comments. Okay, I read your comments and I see it, and I always wish that I see something new in the comments, some new questions, some new ideas, but you guys don't discuss anything. Why is it like that? Don't you enjoy the classes, or is it so good that you don't have any doubts at all? You only get doubts when you study honestly with curiosity. Yes, Rajman Sharma, hi, but you are very late in the class. No problem. Every time you need to come on time, 8 to 10 p.m. is the timing. Okay, understand. In the moderate phase, the main aims of the Indian National Congress in the initial stage were they wanted to be very democratic, first of all, a democratic and a nationalist movement in which they work with the government in a good way, and they wanted to politicize and politically educate people. If they had directly jumped on the direct independence goal, people would not have understood it, because Indian people, even today, see, we are living in an independent India, full independence, completely sovereign, republic, democratic country, but still today elections are coming. You ask people that what is the meaning of democracy and why they are voting, and if they know their rights in reality, you will realize that people don't know. 40% people in India, they are still not aware that what exactly they are doing. They just think that okay, it's an election day, voting day, so it's like a holiday. They spend it in a very general holiday way, but as if some holiday is happening. Not like that. Okay, people, general people, common people, masses who were suffering from poverty and unemployment, they didn't understand these things. Okay, they had no idea of what exactly is Swaraj and these things. So these leaders wanted first to make them realize and educate people that what are political rights, the meaning of political freedom. And they wanted to establish the headquarters for a movement. They wanted to promote friendly relations among nationalist political workers from different parts of country, so that leaders can connect together and work together with all the best ideas of Indian minds. They wanted to develop and propagate an anti-colonial nationalist ideology. Anti-colonial means anti-exploitative, where Britishers could not exploit Indians, and Britishers changed their minds to have a exploitative mind or a exploitative policy. So the era of moderates, where they used to follow three P's: prayer, petition, and plead, they used to be very, very humble. In 1885, they started the journey, and till 1905, we had few important leaders like Dada Bhai Nauroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, D.E. Vacha, W.C. Banerjee, S.N. Banerjee, and they dominated the Congress. They dominated the policies in the early phase. Here, Dada Bhai Nauroji, also known as the Grand Old Man of India, made people understand about the drain of wealth, the theory of drain of wealth. The economic exploitation was highlighted by him and by his work. If we talk about the contributions of the moderate nationalists, it is right that after 20 years we got no good results, but it was not completely in vain. It was still very much functional, and it created a good foundation for a better polity, for a better movement. So, to lead a Swarajist movement or a Swadeshi movement, or preparing people for the Gandhian era, it was very, very important to create a foundation and a base. So, early nationalists led by Dada Bhai Nauroji, R.C. Datta, Dinshaw Vacha, they carefully analyzed the political economy of British rule in India, and they gave a drain theory. Means means what? That Britishers are only here in India to make it a supplier of raw material for their own industrial products, and after finishing the products, those finished goods will come to the Indian market. So, India will be a supplier of raw materials and a market of finished goods. So, in both the ways, it is a double loss for the Indians. So that is drain theory. They oppose the transformation of basically self-sufficient Indian economy into a colonial economy, and they opposed it that this is not right. We were self-sufficient. We had an Atmanirbhar Bharat. We had our own good balance of trade, but Britishers destroyed it. So we need to get it back again. We need to export more and import less. We need to be self dependent in all the ways with all the features. Now, constitutional reforms and propaganda in legislature started. Legislative councils in India, they had no official powers till 1920. With the introduction of Montagu Chelmsford reforms, Indians got accumulated more in the better posts and administrative positions. But before that, these members, they were non-official members, and sometimes they could only ask questions. And many of the times, their advices and questions never mattered. Okay, so they had no real powers, they had nothing to do with the executive policies, and they were just, you know, there to make or pretend that Indians are having something in their hands. Indian members were very, very few in numbers and still with very less amount of power. In 30 years from 1862 to 1892, 45 Indians were only nominated to it, and most of them in the legislative council, they were not, coming from a general background. Mostly, if they are wealthy, landed, loyalists, interests, then only they joined it, and then only they could reach to the high administrative posts. Otherwise, no Indians. Only a handful of political figures and independent intellectuals like Syed Ahmad Khan, Christos Daspal, V.N. Mandalik, K.L. Nulkar, and Rash Bihari Ghosh were among those nominated members, and they all did very well for India. Right? So you understand that this is a big level of web. From 1885 to 1892, the nationalist demands for the constitutional reforms were centered around only few points. First, they wanted the expansion of councils, greater participations of Indians in the councils, so on the higher posts, Indian could also get the jobs so that they can represent people. So with the better representation, they would be able to raise a better voice. With the American Revolution, they got the inspiration that there was a very famous slogan. Do you know the name of that slogan? That line? Do you remember? No taxation without representation. Like if we are paying tax to the government, government should give us representation in the council. If Indians are paying taxes, then Indian members should be there in the government. They should have some representation. They should have some authority and power to raise their voice and implement the policies, right? Reform of council, i.e., more powers to the council, especially greater control over finances, where they can control and advise the government. Okay, so they want expansion and some reforms in the council. Early nationalists work with long term objectives of a democratic self government. But this long term objective was led in a very slow way, with only prayer, petition, and pleads. Their demands for the constitutional reforms were meant to have been conceded in 1892 in the form of Indian Councils Act when these demands were accepted. But if you look at the date 1892, it was a very long period of a clash, and still so many powers were still not there in the hands of the Indians. Dadabhai Nauroji in 1904, Gopal Krishna Gokhale in 1905, Lokmanya Tilak in 1906, they all demanded for the self government, self governing colonies of Canada and Australia on the lines of these colonies, where if in Canada the British government is there, then still the government will have more Canadians in the administrative posts, and they will make their own policies. The transfer of power will be there, and Britishers will have the suzerainty, but they will only there to give guidance. They'll be there to have a roadmap and to support the government with a self rule basis. So self rule was demanded. Later, it was known as home rule. So we had two home rule leagues in India. Okay, one home rule league was by Annie Besant and another was by Tilak. But Annie Besant's league was more spreaded in India. It was more scattered, but Tilak's real home rule league was very concise and to the point. But you will see that Gandhiji will not join any of the home rule league because he thought that Britishers could help Indians in getting some support to have independence and international diplomacy in the world. But he was wrong. He realized it later when the Rowlatt Act was passed. I'll discuss it with you when I'll discuss the home rule league in the last two lessons of the lecture series. There we will discuss, but understand the demand of home rule got started with this time only. Also, leaders like Firoz Shah Mehta and Gokhale, they put government policies and proposals to severe criticism, where they used to criticize the Britishers that uh, you are just looting Indians, okay, and you're not doing something great. So You need to just self realize and understand that is it really right and humanitarian the way Indians are getting the treatment. But with the downfall of this moderate phase and having no real results, having no real powers in the India, many people, especially youngsters, they started revolutionary movements. They became radical. They wanted quick change. Radical means when they want quick change, when they are so frustrated to wait, they have no patience. Okay, now they had no patience, so they never wanted to wait more. A radical trend of a militant nationalist approach to the political activity got started. It was emerging in 1890s, and it took a concentrate shape by 1905 after the partition of Bengal. As an adjacent to this trend, a revolutionary wing also took shape. These revolutionary leaders, they were ready to sacrifice their lives for India, to save the country, to help Indians come out of this colonial rule. Now the question is that why this militant nationalism grew? Why? Because they recognized the true nature of British rule. When they realized that the British rule is only draining India and very, very exploitative, then they understood that it's not right. Also, the feeling that only an Indian government could lead India onto a path of progress, they started attracting more and more people. Also, the British rule was no longer progressive socially and culturally. It was suppressing the spread of education, especially mass and technical education. In 1896, Tilak and others, they imprisoned on the charge of sedition. Why? Sedition means when you are doing something against government, against British Raj. Understand this that today we see it in an Indian perspective, in a nationalist approach. But at that time when British government was there, and if you do anything against the government, that is anti-national or anti-government, which is against the British Raj. So government could always punish you. So similarly here, Tilak and so many other, leaders, they got imprisoned and they lost so many rights. Now, when they realized all these factors, there was the starting of Swadeshi and boycott movement. The Swadeshi movement started with an anti-partition movement which was started to oppose the British decision to partition the Bengal. Why this decision was there? Because Britishers wanted to divide and rule. They wanted to divide Hindus and Muslims. They wanted to start a communal politics in India. So, to raise the communalism in India, they just did this. And Britishers, when they introduced this partition, they said that it is just for an administrative convenience. But we were not fools, we knew the real reasons. Okay, so now you need to understand the partition of Bengal. Okay, the British government decided it in December 1903. Okay, the partition of Bengal, it became public. It was made public in December 1903. When it came in front of public, the idea was to have two Bengal provinces. One Bengal comprising the Western Bengal, which is there in the India today, known as West Bengal, but at that time, Bengal had Bihar and Odisha also included in the area. So, Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. And the Eastern Bengal was with Assam. The Eastern Bengal is the part majorly which is in the Bangladesh today. Assam is not in Bangladesh, Assam is in India. So, Bengal retained Calcutta as its capital, but Dhaka will become the new capital of the Eastern Bengal, which is Bangladesh today. Now, do you see anything here? Understand the intention. A new capital, Dhaka. Why? To lure Muslims. Because they wanted to pretend as if they are the friends and good well wishers of Muslims. They knew that Hindus are not that strict, but Muslims were very aggressive, radical, and strict in their nature. So, to somehow uh, calm them down and have friendship and alignment with Muslims to go against INC and extremist leaders, Britishers decided to give something to Muslims so that they can use Muslims against INC. So to use Muslims, they started talking about those old days during the medieval times when Muslims were in power and they used to rule India. They had their own independence, dominance, so they could dominate again if they get their own region, state, policies. And many of the Muslims, they got influenced. Like not everyone, but a good population was happy by getting this new Dhaka capital, by getting this new area, because they thought that they will have more powers and resources for them and they will have their own Muslim state. So this is the partition of Bengal. Here you can see that Bengal is divided into two parts. This part of Bengal was the part where you see that a lot of Hindu population was there. This is known as West Bengal, and this is the Eastern Bengal, which is Bangladesh today. And in the Eastern Bengal you see that more Muslim population was there. So in this part, we had the area of 366,692 kilometers of area, 54 million population, 9 million Muslims are only there, but Muslim population is 16.67%. So here Muslim minority, here Muslim majority, and Hindu minority, in which area is around 275 938 kilometers square. Population was 31 million, population in total, 18 million Muslims, and 58.06% of Muslim population. So majority of Muslim population in this side, minority of Muslim population in this side, more Hindus here, less Hindus here. So a divide and rule policy. And in this way, they wanted Bengali speaking people and real Bengalis to be minority in their own part, minority in their own Bengal. The Bengalis became minorities in their own Bengal. So that's why anti-partition campaign got started. So when moderates tried to start the campaign, they were not successful. They could not stop the partition of Bengal. It was from 1903 to 05. In the period of 1903 to 05, the leadership was provided by men like Surendranath Banerjee, K.K. Mitra, and Prithvish Chandra Rai. Okay, remember these three names. It is very important for mains that you write and mention these names. Okay, who led the campaign. That's why it is very, very important. You are right, Pranav. That's extremely right. Okay, so understand on 7th August 1905, with the passage of the boycott resolution in a meeting, it was a massive meeting which was held in Calcutta Town Hall. The formal proclamation of Swadeshi movement was made. Now, what is the meaning of this? These moderate leaders, when they understood that they are not getting any success in stopping the government, they decided to do something. They said that, see, we are here with one warning that in case you do this partition of Bengal, we will launch a Swadeshi movement in which we will boycott British goods and Britishers and British policies. So, if you don't want us to launch the Swadeshi movement, don't do this partition. Okay. But even after giving this warning, Viceroy Curzon did the partition of Bengal. And after the partition, the extremist phase got started, and then Indians and many leaders, they became extremists. They started hating Britishers and they started the real struggle. Okay, so this entire content is going to be covered in the next class, and I'll be doing the next phase where we will cover how the partition, you know, was completely there in the Bengal as Curzon decided. So we will discuss the next part in the next video, where we will talk more about the extremist phase and the Bengal partition and the after effects of Bengal partition. So I hope you guys like the session, and in case you have any doubts, you can let me know. I can take a small break of 1 minute here, and then I'll take your doubts. So in case you have anything to discuss, please let me know in the comments. I'll wait for 1 minute, and then we will end the session. And let me know how's your study going, what exactly are you studying these days, which book are you reading these days, if there is any doubt from any part, and if you are feeling stressful in any of the way of your preparation, you can discuss that with me. I'm always there to help you and guide you. So let me know how is it going with you, and if you like the session, please subscribe to the channel, share it and like it, okay? And other students who have no doubts can leave the session here. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have doubts, you can ask. I'm here only. I'll stay for 1 more minute, and then I will end the session. Pranav, you said that you are reading current affairs and optional and history. That's great, Pranav. Have a good timetable and divide 2 hours for each and every slot. It would be highly useful for you. Okay, so I can see that no more doubts are there. So we'll end the session here, guys. I'll meet you guys again in the next class. See you then. Take care. Bye bye.